Welcome to the congregation of Yahweh. We're here on Yahweh's Sabbath day. Greetings to those on the internet. We hope you enjoy the messages that go out. Today's message is entitled Deceiving and Scattering the Flock. And in Scripture, we learn that Yahweh has a flock. And I just want to read a few scriptures concerning the flock and the shepherd, and why does his flock get scattered, and why does his flock get deceived. Let's start off in Ezekiel 34, and I'm just going to scan through a handful of verses about these things and some related topics. Starting in verse 1, and the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy, and say unto them, Thus saith my sovereign Yahweh unto the shepherds, Woe be to the shepherds of Israel that do feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks? You eat the fat, and you clothe you with wool. You kill them that are fed, but you feed not the flock. The diseased have you not strengthened, neither have you healed that which was sick, neither have you bound up that which was broken, neither have you brought again that which was driven away, neither have you sought that which was lost. But with force and with cruelty have you ruled them, and they were scattered. There's a relationship between this scattering and between the shepherds not doing their job. And they became meat to all the beasts of the field, and they were scattered. My sheep wandered through all the mountains and upon every high hill. Yea, my flock was scattered upon all the face of the earth, and none did search or seek after them. And let me go down to verse 14. And this is just for the sake of time, but you can go back and read it all in context. I will feed them in a good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. There shall they lie in a good fold. In a fat pasture shall they feed upon the mountains of Israel. And I believe there's a connection between Isaiah chapter 2 and it's written word for word in another place I can't remember. But anyway, let me go to Isaiah 2 real quick. When it talks about the sheep being fed, matter of fact, the brother read this morning, and I was like, Isaiah chapter 2 verse 1, and the word that Isaiah the son of Amoz saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it, and many people shall go and say, Come you, and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the Elohim of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways. We will walk in his paths, for out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. The sheep feeding on the mountains, and I believe that's what it's talking about. This is the feeding, teaching us of his ways, walking in his paths, the law and the word. And some Bibles actually point out that those four things are synonymous: his ways, his path, his law, his word. And back to Ezekiel 34. Verse 15, I will feed my flock, and I will cause them to lie down, saith my sovereign Yahweh. I will seek that which was lost. I did not come but for the lost sheep, and bring again that which was driven away, and will bind up that which was broken, and will strengthen that which was sick. But I will destroy the fat and the strong, I will feed them with judgment. And as for you, O my flock, thus saith my sovereign Yahweh, behold, I judge between cattle and cattle, between rams and the he-goats. Seemeth it a small thing unto you to have eaten up the good pasture, but you must tread down with your feet the residue of your pastures. And think about that. If what the sheep need is the word, look what the pastors did. They ate from the good pasture, and then they tread upon it. Think about that corruption of the word. The residue of your pastures, and to have drunk of the deep waters, but you must foul the residue with your feet. You drink the good water, but you foul it with the residue of your feet. And as for my flock, they eat that which you have trodden. They eat the word that you have trampled upon with your feet, and they drink that which you have fouled with your feet. Therefore, thus saith my sovereign Yahweh unto them, behold, even I will judge between the fat cattle and between the lean cattle, because you have thrust with side and with shoulder, and pushed all the disease with your horns, till you have scattered them abroad. This is classes of people. Therefore will I save my flock, and they shall no more be a prey, and I will judge between cattle and cattle. And I will set up one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them. Even my servant David, he shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd. And I personally, some people actually believe that this is literally David. I believe this is the lineage of David, fulfilled in the Messiah. He's the one shepherd. And I, Yahweh, will be their Elohim, and my servant David a prince among them. I, Yahweh, have spoken it, and I will make with them a covenant of peace, and will cause the evil beast to cease out of the land, and they shall dwell safely in the wilderness and sleep in the woods. Let me skip over to 37, chapter 37, and verse 24. And David my servant shall be king over them, and they all shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. The connection between the shepherd is the walking in the judgments and observing the statutes and doing them, because the shepherd leads them in the right way. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt, and they shall dwell therein, even they and their children and their children's children forever, and my servant David shall be their prince forever. And a few verses on the scattering. Why? We talked about the sheep being scattered because of shepherds not doing their job, and the sheep are only getting the word that's been trampled upon. In Deuteronomy chapter 30, starting in verse 1, and it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations where Yahweh thy Elohim hath driven thee, and shall return unto Yahweh thy Elohim, and shalt obey his voice, according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that then thy Elohim will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations where Yahweh thy Elohim hath scattered thee. So, disobedience. Scattering is a result of disobedience. And he says, if you call these things to mind, you will be regathered from where you've been scattered. And if you go to your Strong's Concordance and just look up the word scatter, you'll find that scattering was the result of disobedience. Jeremiah 23, and it almost sounds like a repetition of Ezekiel 34. In Jeremiah 23 verse 1, woe unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, saith Yahweh. Therefore, thus saith Yahweh Elohim of Israel against the pastors, or the shepherds, that feed my people. You have scattered my flock and driven them away, and have not visited them. Behold, I will visit upon you the evil of your doings, saith Yahweh. And I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all countries where I have driven them, and will bring them again to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase. And I will set up shepherds over them, which shall feed them, and they shall fear no more, nor be dismayed, neither shall they be lacking, saith Yahweh. Behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that I will raise up unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. How's he going to do that? By leading the sheep in the right way. Let's go to John chapter 10. You know, numerous times in the past I had read about the sheep in the Tanakh and the shepherd. And when I read John chapter 10, you know, I overlooked it for so long. One day it just clicked. I was like, oh, that's what he was talking about. Those things are connected. John chapter 10 verse 1. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that enters not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that enters in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. Now, watch this. The shepherd enters in by the door. The shepherd enters in by the door. I'm just trying to make that stick for a minute. To him the porter opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he puts forth his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. They know the voice of the shepherd. And a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. This parable spake Yeshua unto them, but they understood not what things they were which he spake unto them. Then said Yeshua unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door. So not only did the shepherd enter in through the door, he is the door. Well, who is he? He's the Word made flesh. The shepherd entered in through the Word, and he is the Word that you have to enter into. Verse 7, Then said Yeshua unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. If you go through the Word, you will be saved. And you'll go in and out and find pasture. What's the pasture for? Feeding. Go through the Word to get that food. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. Didn't say the last half of his word. He said every word. The thief comes not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. How do you have that life and have it more abundantly? You have to enter into the Word and find pasture. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. But he that is a hireling, and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, sees the wolf coming, and leaves the sheep, and flees, and the wolf catches them, and scatters the sheep. Now it's interesting, a little back there in Matthew, he warned us of wolves in sheep's clothing. Verse 13, the hireling flees because he is a hireling and cares not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd and know my sheep and am known of mine. As the Father knows me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice. And there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Now, back there in Ezekiel, it talked about the flocks being divided and coming back into one under one shepherd. Therefore does my Father love me, because I lay down my life that I might take it again. Let me go down to verse 26. But you believe not, because you are not of my sheep. As I said unto you, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. They hear his voice, the voice of the word. The verse that I quoted earlier, man shall not live by bread alone, was Matthew 4:4. And it was a quote from Deuteronomy 8:3. Deuteronomy 8:3 is the verse that said, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. And there's a few more verses I'd like to read about that word. 1 Peter chapter 1. First Peter chapter 1, starting in verse 23. Being born again, not of corruptible seed, but of incorruptible, by the word of Yahweh, which lives and abides forever. Now, he just called the word of Yahweh the incorrupted seed, uncorruptible seed. Now, then he goes on to quote verses from Isaiah. For all flesh is as grass, and all the glory of man as the flower of grass. The grass withers, and the flower thereof falls away. But the word of Yahweh endures forever. And this is the word which by the good news is preached unto you. So Peter, talking about the good news being preached, is quoting Isaiah, which says his word endures forever. And they didn't specify that there was a division in the word. They said it was the word endures forever and it's uncorrupted, incorruptible. Let me read a couple verses about this shepherd. Matthew chapter 9. Starting in verse 35. And if you concentrate while you read this, if you think about some of the words in Ezekiel, where he said what the shepherds wasn't doing, how they were mistreating the sick and not healing anybody. Watch this. And Yeshua went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the good news of the kingdom. What's he doing? He's being a good shepherd. And healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitude, he was moved with compassion on them, because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. Then saith he unto his disciples, the harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. There's a connection between the scattered sheep and the harvest. Pray ye therefore the master of the harvest, that he will send forth laborers into his harvest. Matthew chapter 25. Come on in. Matthew chapter 25 and verse 31. 25:31. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, Then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations. And that kind of ties in with what we talked about earlier. All nations flowing to the mountain. And he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. And then it goes on to say the good things that these people did. And those are the ones enter in. They say, when you did this to the least of other people, you did it unto me. And then the other group that didn't enter in said, well, when did we not do these things? And he said, when you didn't do it for other people, you didn't do it for me. And the way you treat other people is defined in his word. Right. That's how he's going to separate the sheep from the goats. His word. Hebrews, I'm not going to quote it, but Hebrews 13:20 talks about the shepherd. 1 Peter 2, let me flip over there. 1 Peter 2:25. For you were as sheep going astray, but you are now returned unto the shepherd and bishop of your souls. And that's how you turn from being scattered. Turn to the true shepherd. And 1 Peter 5, chapter 5, 1 through 4. Let's see if that's right. The elders which are among you I exhort, who am also an elder and a witness of the sufferings of Messiah, and also partaker of the glory that shall be revealed. Feed the flock of Elohim which is among you. He's exhorting the elders to feed the flock, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, greedy of gain. Don't be a keeper of the flock, greedy of gain. And don't do it because you're strained to do it. Do it because you want to do it, but of a ready mind. Neither as being masters over Yahweh's heritage, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd shall appear, you shall receive a crown of glory that fadeth not away. Let's go to the last chapter of John. It's John 21. Now, the disciples were commissioned to go and be fishers of men, make disciples of all nations, teaching everything that he commanded them to teach. And after the resurrection, Peter said, well, I think I'm going to go fishing. So they said, well, we'll go fishing with you. And while they're out fishing, they pulled in a great harvest of fish. And well, let's read it here. Let's start in verse 5. Then Yeshua saith unto them, Children, have you any meat? They answered him, No. So they're out there fishing. Instead of being fishers of men, they haven't caught anything. And the Messiah appears and says, Do you have anything? They said, No. Verse 6, And he said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and you shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fish. Therefore, that disciple whom Yeshua loved said unto Peter, It is the Master. Now when Simon Peter heard that it was the Master, he girt his fisher's coat unto him, for he was naked, and did cast himself into the sea. And the other disciples came in a little ship, for they were not far from land, but as it were 200 cubits, dragging the net with fishes. As soon then as they were come to land, they saw a fire of coals there, and fish laid thereon, and bread. So what you learn from this story so far is, one, they weren't doing what they were told to do, and in the process, They didn't have any fish of their own, and the Messiah himself provided. Verse 10, Yeshua saith unto them, bring of the fish which you have now caught. Simon Peter went up and drew the net to land full of great fishes, 153. And for all there were so many, yet was not the net broken. Yeshua saith unto them, come and dine. And none of the disciples did ask him, who art thou, knowing that it was the master. Yeshua then comes and takes bread and gives them, and fish likewise. This is now the third time that Yeshua showed himself to his disciples after that he was risen from the dead. So when they had dined, Yeshua saith unto Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? I always thought he was comparing him to the disciples. Do you love me more than these other disciples? But I realized that he was talking about the fish. Do you love me more than these fish? If not, why aren't you out being a fisher of men? I gave you a commission. You weren't doing it. Do you love me more than these fish? Yea, Master, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, feed my lambs. And I believe that's a response. If you really love me, feed the lambs. He saith to him again the second time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? He saith unto him, yea, Master, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, feed my sheep. He saith unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time. He always deals with Peter's in threes. 3 times he denied him. 3 times, this is the third time he appeared. 3 times he received a vision in the book of Acts, and 3 men were coming. But it's almost like he was sending Peter that repetition of 3 to wake him up. So he said, feed my sheep. Let's go to Matthew chapter 7. Starting in verse 12. Therefore all things whatsoever you would that men should do unto you, do ye even so to them, for this is the law and the prophets. And that brings to mind what he said earlier, when you do this to the least of these, you've done it unto me. This is the law and the prophets. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leads unto life, and few there be that find it. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree brings forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that brings not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Therefore, by their fruits you shall know them. Now, I believe he's about to explain what the fruit is. What is the fruit of the wolves in sheep's clothing? Not everyone that says unto me, Master, Master, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that does the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. Now that word iniquity right there is the same word used in 1 John chapter 3. 1 John chapter 3 and verse 4, whosoever commits sin transgresses also the law, for sin is transgression of the law. That phrase, transgression of the law, comes from one word. It's the Greek word 458, and it's anomia, violation of the law. So he's saying, depart from me, you that violate the law. Therefore, whosoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken unto a wise man which built his house upon the rock. Now it's interesting, that word sayings is the Greek word logos. In John 1, when it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, that's the same word. So he's saying, therefore, whosoever hears this word of mine and does the word, I will liken unto a wise man that built his house upon the rock. Now it's interesting. When I see verses put together, I kind of want to know, well, I wonder why that's placed there. But the first where I started off, it says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This is the law and the prophets. Then he starts talking about the straight gate. The straight gate, the way, the narrow way. And then he starts talking about false prophets in sheep's clothing. What do? They scatter the flock. And this says you're going to know them by their fruit. I believe that the fruit of the wolves that scatter the flock are the ones that are transgressing the law and not listening to the word and doing it. Therefore, whosoever hears the word and does it. And then he goes on to say, but whoever hears the word and doesn't do it, the rain descended, the floods came down, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. And it came to pass, when Yeshua had ended these sayings, the people were astonished at his doctrine. And we'll close out in Matthew chapter 13. And this is a very well-known parable, and it is taught from many different angles, but I just want to point out in verse 18, this is when he's explaining what the parable of the sower was. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word, same word, logos, the word of the kingdom, and understands it not, then comes the wicked one and catches away that which was sown in his heart. This is he which received seed by the wayside, but he that received the seed into stony places, the same is he that hears the word, and anon with joy receives it, yet he has no root in himself, but dureth for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, by and by he is offended. He also that received the seed among thorns is he that hears the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. But he that receives the seed into good ground. Now remember, Peter said that the word was the incorruptible seed. And here it says that he hears the word and understands it. Hearing the word and understanding the word, that's what brings forth the fruit. And then in verse 36 of chapter 13, 36, this is the parable of the tares and the wheat. Then Yeshua sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, he that sows the good seed is the Son of Man, the good seed. The field is the world, the good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angel. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. Anybody that goes for that rapture doctrine might want to meditate on that verse there. The tares are gathered first. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity. That sounds like the separation of the sheep and the goats. And shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Now he said that let the tares and the wheat grow together, so that you don't accidentally harvest the wheat also. And the tares actually look similar to the wheat. And think about the wolves in sheep's clothing. So and it all centers around the Word. So the sheep can become scattered because of disobeying the Word. The sheep become scattered when the shepherds keep the Word to themselves and corrupt the Word. And we can also be led astray by other false sheep. Hallelujah.